the portal in college football?
Free agency.
Now that clip right there was Coach Prime answering a question about the transfer portal. And you notice he called it free agency. And that's, well, because it kind of is. As the transfer portal was an idea introduced to college football back on October 15th of 2018. As the transfer portal has made an outsized impact on collegiate sports all around, growing attention from the media and fans. And since its introduction, it has had a good, bad, and ugly impact on college football. And I'm here to explain all those impacts. But before that, I want to say like, share, and subscribe, hit the post notification bell so you don't miss an upload. And let's get started with the good. As one good in the college football transfer portal is that players get to resurrect their careers in new places. For example, let's look at the top 3 Heisman candidates of this season: Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr., and Jaden Daniels. As Bo Nix, when he committed to Auburn, he was looked at as their savior. Then he got there, underperformed, and he was viewed as a bust. But then he went over to Oregon, and they surrounded him with the right pieces, right talent, and he became a Heisman candidate. Then Michael Penix went from this injury-prone player in Indiana who had a bad year at Indiana his last season to Washington, where they surrounded him with the right talent, and he became a Heisman candidate also. And Jaden Daniels was good his freshman year, but he was seen as a guy that didn't really get much better from his sophomore junior year at Arizona State. Then he transferred to LSU and became a Heisman candidate also. You can also look at a guy like Tommy DeVito, who started at Syracuse, went to Illinois, played good, went undrafted, but now is playing good in the NFL. You also had guys in the transfer portal that just really didn't get playing time at all. You had a guy like Joe Burrow, who was behind a loaded quarterback room at Ohio State, transferred to LSU, won a national title. You also had Jameson Williams, who was sitting behind a loaded wide receiver room at Ohio State, and he went to Alabama, won a national title, and got to showcase his talent and became a first-round draft pick. You also got Will Levis, who started at Penn State, transferred to Kentucky. For example, if he stayed at Penn State, this would be his first year starting, as Sean Clifford was the starter for his whole career. It has also helped FCS players get to the FBS level and showcase their talents and help the draft stock. As now you got Jared Verse, who started at Albany, transferred up to Florida State, and is now locked to be a first-round pick. It also gives players to go elsewhere and get better development than the previous team. It's also helped teams rebuild and also just retool, such as like a Alabama, a USC, a Georgia, Texas. You know, all those teams have used the transfer portal to retool their rosters. And you got a team like a Louisville that has done it to help rebuild, and a Florida State that has done it to help rebuild. And that's the good of the transfer portal. Now let's get into the bad. And the bad is players getting recruited over, more so high school players. As, yeah, they're going to get recruited over anyways, at least some of them, but now it's more prone to happen because of the transfer portal. As you look at a Malik Murphy situation, where, yeah, Texas would have started him as a true freshman, which probably isn't the best thing, but they went out and got a transfer portal quarterback. And it wasn't just a regular transfer portal quarterback, it was Quinn Ewers. And with them getting Quinn Ewers, that means Malik Murphy was going to have to sit for at least 2 years or 3, depending on if Quinn Ewers come back or not. So now that will leave Malik Murphy with about 2, maybe 3 years to start and try to earn an NFL draft spot. You can also look at a guy like Ty Thompson, another quarterback, but this time he plays for Oregon. And Thompson is one of Oregon's best recruits of all time. But when they brought him in, they already had Anthony Brown, and he sat behind him for a year. Then they brought in Bo Nix, which he sat behind him for 2 years. And Thompson just entered the transfer portal about 2 weeks ago or a week ago. But now he's only going to have, like, I believe 2 years of eligibility left, maybe 3 if I'm not mistaken. I also want to point at Jalen Milroe, because at first during the quarterback battle over the summer, it was just him and Ty Simpson. Then they brought in Tyler Buckner and created some little bit of controversy. But I believe that's because they didn't really believe too much in Jalen Milroe, so they brought in Buckner. So now teams are looking for these more ready now players. And I mean, it kind of makes sense, as, you know, why trust a guy that hasn't started at a certain position at all in college versus a guy that's in the transfer portal that we can go get and that is proven to be ready and battle tested. I also think something bad about the transfer portal is that it might cause some fans to leave the game of college football. Some fans just like familiarity with teams, so they might not watch, knowing that all these players are going different places and they can't keep up with it. Kind of like the NBA. I believe that's why the NBA viewership has dropped in the recent years, because it's so much player movement going on that it's hard to keep up with these players. But I don't think it's that big of a deal, so I didn't really want to spend too much time talking about it. I just think it's something that might be just thrown out there. The transfer portal is also can hurt those group of 5 teams that are looking to sustain success. For example, you already got Chris Mitchell, who played at FIU this past season, but just now he transferred to Notre Dame. Then you got a guy like DeCon Finn from Toledo that transferred to Baylor. And you look at it, it might be hard for those teams such as a Toledo or FIU to sustain success knowing that their best players from the previous season is going to enter the portal. But it's like a double-edged sword, because as I said earlier, it can help these teams also rebuild, as you know, now these Power 5 players that weren't so good on the Power 5 level can now go to a Group of 5 team and showcase the talent. So sometimes with the transfer portal, you gotta take the good with the bad, because sometimes it's just a double-edged sword. But let's look at the ugly of the transfer portal, as let's really talk about the tampering that goes on. The first tampering event I can remember in the transfer portal happening was the Jordan Addison to USC tampering event. As Addison's last season at Pitt, he went off. He had almost 1,600 yards, and he also had 17 touchdowns, and this made him be a hot commodity to USC, as it was reported by Sports Illustrated that Addison, who was likely to transfer to USC for a massive NIL deal. Then last year in the offseason, it was reported that Drake May was offered $5 million by at least 2 teams to enter the transfer portal and transfer to their team. Now, there's no clue on who the teams were, but we can speculate. And also, yeah, it was just a rumor, but let's be honest, it's probably some truth to it. So now these high-level, high-prominent Power 5 teams can offer these mid-tier to low-prominent Power 5 players some money to come to their team and make their team better. And further proof of that is Brett Bielema, Illinois head coach. It was reported by Jeremy Warner of Illini Inquirer saying that Illini head coach Brett Bielema said some of his players who returned to play at Illinois last season had bigger offers to play at other colleges than they would have made in the NFL. And also need to talk about the Ken Ward situation, as Ken Ward was reportedly offered $1 million to $2 million before he was even in the transfer portal, and right now it looks like he's going to go to Miami. And hey, we all know Miami be tossing around that bag. And another ugly thing about the transfer portal is that some players just don't find a spot, as according to Fansided.com, about 43% of the transfer portal entrants after the season did not make it onto a roster for the 2022-2023 season. And I guess another ugly thing about the transfer portal, or maybe you can consider this bad, is the timing of the transfer portal. As the first part of the portal opens up in December, but the whole problem is that some of those teams play until December, or they play in January. You know, if you're playing for the national title, then you know you're kind of at a disadvantage because you're worried about coaching when all these other teams get to recruit before you. But no matter what, the transfer portal is going to be around in college football for, well, as long as probably most of us are alive. And the portal has some flaws. It has its pros, it has its cons, it has its good side, it has its bad side. As players can now transfer to a new team for a new opportunity if they're not getting enough playing time. Also, it can help retool and rebuild teams quicker. And of course, the worst part of the transfer portal is the fact that these teams get to tamper with other teams, as now teams can throw NIL money at these players at these smaller schools to get them to come to their school. And hey, this is college football now. This is the new age of college football. And if you're a college football fan, no matter what, you're going to stay and enjoy it. And if you don't, well, you won't. But that's it for this video. Thank you all for watching. I'm out. Peace.